the book's definitely focused on specifically sweat and primarily saunas. Like nothing's in a silo, right? If you're eating McDonald's 3 times a day, and but even then, if you start using a sauna, you're gonna feel better. And what's cool is it's almost like a kickstart. It's not telling someone, "Hey, go to the gym 5 times a week." You're saying, "Hey, go sit down. Maybe you'll watch a movie through the screen and sweat 3 times a week." That could start a nice positive feedback loop in the right direction in terms of health practices. A lot of people report, myself included, let's say you get off track health wise and are eating less healthy, that using the sauna, you almost feel pulled back towards like a healthier lifestyle in other areas. So it does kind of bleed into other things. But ultimately, if you're serious about your health, you do go down the other rabbit holes. You go down the using shower filters, drinking glass bottled spring water. You clean up your diet. You test different diets that might work for you. You exercise. I do think this is the lowest hanging fruit that's been overlooked and sort of the most easiest to implement, to be honest, and most impactful. So it's this, it's the 80-20 rule on steroids in terms of like health practices.
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have another great author on with me today. It's my first recording of the new year, which is great. I love this. So we're starting off with a bang in 2024, and it's going to get a little hot and sweaty here for a reason, because our author today's written a great book that's going to help you with your health journey. And he's come up with some really interesting things that have helped him personally, and they're going to help you as well. So really excited to have Justin on the podcast. Justin, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you for having me.
This is great. We chatted a little bit before we hit record. Can you tell everybody where you are in this big world of ours?
I'm in New York City.
I love New York. I've been there multiple times. Friends lived in Bushwick and around there, so I've been there walking the streets of New York. It's beautiful. It's like a movie set every day. I love it. Justin, tell us a little bit about your author journey. How did it start for you? How did you become an author? Did you wake up one day and go, you know what, I got a few minutes, I'm going to write a book? Is that kind of how it all started for you?
I not at all.
Okay.
I had a I had a health problem in my early 20s that led me to trying to find solutions, and essentially the solutions that I found are kind of the content from my book. I've been mulling over the idea of writing a book about that idea because I just didn't see it out there. And so it really came from a sense of I would have regretted not writing it and sharing this information with people. And so I said, damn, I really don't want to write this book, but I feel like I need to. So I gave myself 6. I had all the content in my head and all the kind of components, but the writing process was I gave myself 6 months to write it. And so it was about 2 to 3 hours most mornings of just attacking it and putting it together. Interviewing people, writing sessions, all those kinds of things to put this information together. So that was in, I think, May or June of last year. I decided to actually commit to doing it versus other projects I was considering. And then I released it on November 15th.
Any other writing in your past before writing the book?
Songwriting, but not book writing. So okay. It was definitely a new experience. A lot of reading other nonfiction book to get a sense. I was always a big reader. I loved reading books, particularly nonfiction, but I never read it through the lens of how is this constructed? How do they think about putting this together? And so I needed to kind of get in that mindset of kind of reverse engineering how nonfiction books are written to then go do it. So it was an interesting, arduous process, but worth it in the end.
Amazing. And we chatted too that you have a marketing background, which we're going to kind of leverage a little bit of that in our conversation today for authors that are listening. But talk more about your health journey. What was going on with you in the early days prior to writing the book that you were saying you were like at a 3 out of 10, kind of like all the time, physically feeling like? Explain a little bit more about what was going on physically and your search. What did you try aside from writing the book and what you found? Did you try other things to try to find a remedy?
I tried everything. So, I would say starting around like 13, 14 is when it slowly just got worse. And I think a lot of it was diet related. A lot of it was environmental, which I get into in the book. But what really happened was just slowly over time, it just felt like, my energy levels went down. My mood got crazy, chronic fatigue, brain fog. racing thoughts, anxiety, all these, this is just horrible of things, and didn't have a clear reason why. And was totally not in the health space. I mean, my diet was, as bad as it could be, really.
Yeah.
And it kind of hit a wall after college where I said, all right, if I don't solve this, this is going to be a problem for the rest of my life. So I became obsessed with figuring it out. That involved Western doctors, Eastern doctors, every modality under the sun, really. Talking to people, reading, speaking with experts, trying to figure it out. Nothing really helped. And ultimately, I stumbled into a sauna based on a recommendation and felt better after that sauna session than anything else. And I didn't understand why. And so I kept doing sauna, and sauna helped. And I learned over time why it was helping and like the science behind it, which is a big part of the book. But essentially, I kept doing sauna and went from feeling, my lowest to kind of back to normal to then better than I've ever felt. And I found out that that experience wasn't unique to me. And I found out the reasoning afterwards, which I think is important because I didn't go in with some placebo of this is going to help me for XYZ reason. It helped. And then I learned why it helped. So, and it made total sense. And so this book was kind of the culmination of understanding those pieces and wanted to share that with people so they can save themselves, whether you're feeling terrible or you're feeling just average, or, there's another level, or you feel like there's kind of like a grayness in your life. Save you the headache that I went through of years of searching, and just kind of shorten your trip to getting to the result you want with the ideas in this book, which I think are, personally, I think it's the most overlooked important ideas in health. And that's why I'm so passionate about spreading the mission of it. And also why I went against my own inclinations to actually write the book. So that's it.
And you were saying that there's noticeable differences now that your sauna is part of your life, and that 3 out of 10 rating you would have gave yourself prior to your journey is now a lot different. So how is life now that sauna and all this stuff that you're working on now, how is that different for you? How are you feeling today?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the issue with health recommendations and things like that is our internal experience is so subjective that it's hard to know what it's like to be in your body and what it is like to feel like you on a day-to-day basis. For me, it was like almost, I liken it to like if I had sunglasses on at all times and then I got to take my sunglasses off. When you're wearing sunglasses all the time, you don't have a reference point for how much different your experience could be. That's what it's like. The level of like mental clarity, the freedom from brain fog, the almost speed of thinking has improved. My mood levels have improved, my energy levels. So I think if you like transported me back into my like 2017 body, it would be like, oh, this is awful. But I was so used to it. And I think most people live in that, are a lot of people are accustomed to living in that space. And so there's kind of I don't want to say a leap of faith, but a sense that like, oh, there is a better version of me on the other side of this that is worth trusting and seeing if it's true. And that was my experience. That was tens of thousands of other people's experience. And so, yeah, it's just completely transformative. And when those things change, everything you show up to in life changes. Your entire interaction with life shifts because your center is different.
So for the readers that are going to grab a copy of Sweat, your new book, is there anything around duration and frequency of sauna that you would say to somebody new reading the book and now maybe following your journey and your path for themselves? Is there anything around duration and frequency starting out in sauna?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of the book is about the history of sweat. So showing that trying to change the perception around the word, essentially. It's kind of a gross word. But cultures around the world for centuries have used sweat lodges, saunas, from Russian banyas to the Turkish to Peruvians to the Native Americans. This is something that all cultures have integrated in the past, and now it's more important than ever. And I go into why. And then I go into the science of toxins and that issue in the modern world. The last 60 years, we've introduced tens of thousands of chemicals into the environment. And I go into the science of how that's wreaking havoc on health. So then you get to that point, you're like, oh, there's a problem. Then you get to the science of sweat and detoxification, and how sweat is actually the best way to get these substances out of our body. Skin is the largest detoxification organ. Then we go into the ways to sweat. So sauna is one of those ways. It's absolutely the best way. It's not the only way. And
Yeah.
I go into the types of saunas, the best ways to sauna, how to find a sauna, and then also like what a sauna session should look like as well.
Do you cover any misconceptions about sauna that maybe you wanted to give some clarity to as well?
For one, steam rooms. Don't use a steam room. I advise against that for a couple of reasons. One is it's a breeding ground for mold. Mold thrives in moist, dark places, and that's what a steam room is. And then you're also breathing in the water vapors, which typically is tap water and contaminated. So steer towards dry and infrared saunas. That's a big misconception. Um, that's kind of a big one. I think I think big misconception is, oh, the skin's not a detoxification, like the liver is for detoxification. But I go into the studies that show that a lot of these substances are preferentially excreted through sweat, actually. And so they've literally scraped, 20 participants for the sweat and test it in the lab and show that it comes out in the sweat.
So then how often would we, as a new person following the journey of sweat, how
Mhm.
often should we be looking into jumping into a sauna? And like, is that something weekly, daily? How often should we be
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah, kind of the prevailing idea is to get into a sauna and sweat profusely for 20 minutes at a minimum, say 3 to 4 times a week is a
Okay.
good recommendation. The I think that's important. I think the most important thing is buying into why. Why should you take the time to do that? And fortunately, the feedback from the book has been everyone's bought in by the end, which was my goal. Like I want to take you through that thought process of why this is so overlooked and important and get you to the point where you say, I'm in. Now I understand the why. Now I'm just looking for the how. And so yeah, that's kind of the minimum dose recommendation.
Okay. And then maybe let's touch on a little bit of the how.
Mm-hmm.
That's important as well. I know you're going to
Sure.
cover that in the book, but for those listening, interested in what we're talking about, talk a little bit about the how. What do we do?
Yeah, so you buy into that it's important, and then you go, okay, how can I introduce specifically sauna, right? I do talk on hot yoga a little bit, on running. Even I have friends who play tennis in the Florida heat and they sweat heavily. So
Yeah.
there are options, but sauna is just the easiest, most effective way to do this. So two options, public or private. So you're either buying a sauna, which I talk about the pros and cons of. For your home or apartment. I think I'm one of the few people in New York City who took the time to like figure out what sauna to put in my apartment and actually prioritized it. So I did do that, and I talk about that in the book. I found a good company for that. For public, I lay out how to go about finding a good sauna to use. So again, avoid steam rooms. You're probably going to find it either in a wellness clinic or a gym, and then you're probably going to pay a subscription to do that X amount of times per month. And it really varies. It depends where in the country or where in the world you are. New York City's crazy for prices, which is why financially it actually makes sense to buy a sauna compared to pay $500 a month for access to unlimited sauna sessions.
Nice. And then talk a little bit about your author journey too, like with your background in marketing, getting out there. I find a lot of authors come on the show. They write the book, they think they're done, they get to the finish line of writing the book, and then they realize that's the starting line of marketing. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm so alone as an author. I've had so much help writing the book. Now I'm on my own to get out there and talk about it. From your marketing background, I think this would really help an author listening. Any steps, anything to keep in mind around marketing your book as a new author?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had released an album, so I felt the pain of putting yourself into a work and then putting it out and the void.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the most important thing is, do you believe that you have something truly valuable that if enough people read it, word of mouth would spread the book, which is, I feel like I checked that box. And so I was happy with that. In terms of the actual marketing efforts, I was lucky to connect with a couple other self-published authors who had success and pick their brains about what worked. And so kind of laying out the options, like what do we have at our disposal? We have paid ads, we have podcasting, we have organic content, we have social media platforms we could post on regularly, we have PR, looking at those options and then kind of weighing where my time is best spent. And so for me, my background is in a lot of paid ads. So I worked with a lot of e-commerce companies running paid ads. So I understand all the platforms. And Amazon ads was a place I've tested and was hoping to scale. And I'm still working on that. But which is interesting with Amazon ads compared to other platforms is most other platforms, if you say, I'll give you $1 million to spend, they'll figure out a way to spend it on the platform. Amazon ads, there's limited inventory. So it's actually hard to get them to spend your money, even if you want them to. So figuring that game out has been interesting. Podcasting, I learned, just over the last couple of weeks that I enjoy having conversations about the book. It plays to my natural inclinations. And so it didn't feel like pushing a rock up a hill. It felt like something I'd enjoy, connecting with people, sharing my message. So I've added that to my marketing kind of buckets. And then I've been testing specifically TikTok, just because there's so much reach and I can share the book on TikTok Shop, which is a new thing. So those are kind of my 3 current strategies, but it's certainly overwhelming. And there's definitely a tendency towards paralysis analysis of what do I do? How do I do it? I took a couple courses that were recommended to me for authors. I reached out to other authors and I just kind of set realistic goals and kept some momentum up every single day. I think it's the most important thing.
What other resources did you draw from to write Sweat? Did you have medical advice that you've had or people in the space that you could draw from?
Well, I had a list of reasons not to write the book. Well, one was, I'd see like really successful entrepreneurs on a show and like the hardest thing I ever did was write a book. It's like,
yeah,
I'm thinking about writing a book instead of just like starting a company or something. That was one. The other was, who am I to write this book? And I think the answer is no one else has written it. Like no one else was putting this information in this way. And one of the disheartening things that happens when you have health issues is you realize that the professionals know a lot, but they don't know everything. And you can, go to you could become a world-class surgeon and still know nothing about saunas. People spend their entire careers researching a single, vitamin D for 30 years. Like it's humbling how much complexity there is to these things. And so I felt that I could be more of like a reporter than have, say, like a medical background. In the same way, James Nestor wrote a book called Breath. I'm not sure if you're familiar, which was a best-selling health book. And I said, all right, I want to do for Sweat what he did for Breath. He was just a journalist. He interviewed the experts. He put the information together. So I interviewed toxicology experts like Howard Zellweger. I interviewed sauna experts, sauna company founders, 9/11 survivors as part of the book because there was a sauna protocol for them, which we can talk about if you'd like.
Yeah.
And MDs, I tried to I interviewed probably 15 to 20 different people for the book, as well as, in-depth PubMed research and reading other books in the space and putting that information together.
Amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the connection with the 9/11 survivors as well. That's something that's very meaningful for me personally. So I'd love to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. So with 9/11, if you want to look for an extreme example of toxins, that's a pretty good place to look. So, there were just smoke was in the air, buildings, materials, carcinogens, people were breathing these things in their lungs. Thousands of people were affected. And a lot of these people couldn't go to work. Tremors, brain fog, ultimately down the line, cancers, Alzheimer's, like these toxins just affected everything and really just took people out of life for a long time. And so both the government, nonprofits were looking for solutions to help these people. Nothing was working. Essentially, nothing was really giving true solutions. And they put together a niacin sauna clinic, which essentially is using sauna and it's a vitamin B called niacin that actually does something called lipolysis, which essentially allows the fat cells to release the toxins they've stored. A lot of chemicals are lipophilic, meaning they store in they're fat loving, so they store in the fat cells. and they can be there for 30 years and just slowly drip out and cause problems over your lifetime. And so niacin will open what's called open the fat cells to release it into the bloodstream, and then you could time that with the sauna to sweat it out. So it's this miraculous protocol. And so initially they took 500 people through that. All 500 people got better. 85%, I think, got off their medications. Everyone was able to go back to work. Just their IQs went up because a lot of these substances mess with brain function. The brain's 60% fat. So just remarkable recoveries. And so I interviewed a couple people. One was Anne Marie, who actually runs an advocacy group for trying to get the government to use this with veterans and other protocols, trying to make this protocol more mainstream because of how effective it is. And so ultimately, I think 5,000 people went through it. And that's just an extreme example of what we face in the modern world in terms of chemical and toxin exposure. But that just shows how effective this protocol is, because it kind of proved, besides the literature, it proved kind of in person how effective it is at detoxing these substances out of the body, and then what the resulting impact is. I mean, she had like a Darth Vader. Her daughter wouldn't let her drop her off at school because she sounded like Darth Vader and it was scaring kids because of her lung issues.
Yeah.
And then she went back to Congress, I think, after she went through the protocol, and they said they didn't believe it was her because of how her before and after, like visually, even in her face, her puffiness and everything. And so I go into, that's kind of the final chapter of the book, is the niacin sauna protocol, which I don't recommend people do on their own. If they're looking for, it does require some oversight and understanding of the nuances, but it is something I'm really passionate about, because I think you kind of come to the conclusion that everyone on the planet should go through this protocol because of how impactful it is.
Yeah, I know that's one thing that I struggle with is I have asthma and had it since I was a child, and breathing. And sometimes for me, if I am in a sauna, I can feel the difference. Like just the environment makes me breathe differently. So that's one thing that I noticed whenever I've done a sauna. I guess the big thing as I kind of look at this is I'm wondering if there's any other companion things that go along with regular sauna practices that would make it even more beneficial. Like I'm thinking diet, I'm thinking about rest. Is there anything else that kind of is like a partner to sauna that makes our life even better that you might cover in the book?
Not covered in the book. The book's definitely focused on specifically sweat and primarily saunas. There's definitely, like, nothing's in a silo, right? If you're eating McDonald's 3 times a day, but even then, if you start using a sauna, you're gonna feel better. And what's cool is it's almost like a kickstart. It's not telling someone, hey, go to the gym 5 times a week. You're saying, hey, go sit down, maybe you'll watch a movie through the screen and sweat 3 times a week. That could start a nice positive feedback loop in the right direction in terms of health practices. A lot of people report, myself included, let's say you get off track health-wise and are eating less healthy, that using the sauna, you almost feel pulled back towards like a healthier lifestyle in other areas. So it does kind of bleed into other things. But ultimately, if you're serious about your health, you do go down the other rabbit holes. You go down the using shower filters, drinking glass bottled spring water. You clean up your diet. You test different diets that might work for you. You exercise. I do think this is the lowest hanging fruit that's been overlooked and sort of the most easiest to implement, to be honest, and most impactful. So it's this, it's the 80-20 rule on steroids in terms of like health practices.
Nice. I'm just kind of looking as we chat too on your Amazon page. I'm reading some pretty amazing reviews in the book. What does it mean for you as an author to see and interact with these responses from readers to your book?
It's been great. I mean, I've gotten messages from people. A lot of times I'll get a message, hey, I found a sauna in my town. I'm using it. Here's what I've noticed. I have a friend whose eczema completely cleared up and their inflammation has gone down. I mean, it's been pretty remarkable. And I'm just looking to spread it to more people, because I think I hope in 10 years or so, it becomes almost, of course I go to the sauna 3 or 4 times a week. It's like, why would I, like, the same way we're recommended to go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, the sauna should be in the same level of conversation. I want people to understand why. So
Nice. Yeah, like I'm just reading through some of the reviews.
mm,
Jason, he's in the US. He gave you a 5-star review, of course, which is great. Great to the point. He says, a book that changed the way I think about health. The information is explained in a way that's so interesting, such an easy read, and easy to implement that I have already made positive, beneficial changes in my life. If you're looking for a book that doesn't spout the same information you've heard over and over again and would like to be the best you, look no further. So that was Jason. Like, there's so many great reviews from your readers, which I love to see. And I think that's one thing I would encourage listeners, as you buy books from great authors, to leave detailed reviews like that. Instead of get away from great book, great author. What is that? Like, give me some information about what you found in the book that steers me towards this would be a great purchase or a great gift for someone that would be interested in the topic. So that's my
yeah,
encouragement to a reader. Those reviews really do matter to authors and to fellow readers. So please, when you buy a book, like Justin book, make sure you leave a great review. That's really important.
agreed. Thank you. Yeah, and I think in that review, the easy to read thing,
Yeah.
um, as I feel like I'm like the bridge between sort of the expert's knowledge and the consumer in the
Yeah.
book. And as I'm learning, I'm kind of getting pulled more towards the expert level. So while I wrote it, I feel like it is easy to read because I'm kind of making it consumable, even if you don't have a medical background. So instead of a study on xenobiotics poisoning your mitochondrial function, I say
What?
toxins are messing with your energy levels. So like
Smart.
these different kind of levels of communicating was interesting, but it's definitely readable. You don't need a medical background, and definitely I want it to be really actionable and just it's under 130 pages, so
Yeah.
there's no bloat. It's just straight to the point and just packed with all the insights I wanted to get across.
Yeah. And maybe just one more before we jump off here in
Yeah.
a moment. But from Rachel, she also 5 stars. She says, I absolutely love this book and I couldn't agree more. I have had a long time love for saunas and sweating it out. I'm a firm believer in less is more and getting back to the basics. Sweating is a natural way to rid the body of a plethora of toxins we come in contact with on a regular basis. In this great read for anyone looking for information and detoxification and wanting to do it the more natural way, I know I can't wait to start cleansing myself of toxins and getting back a little pep in my step. So that's Rachel, which is great.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, it's nice to hear these reviews. So that's why I love adding these here into our conversation, because these are real people who are
Mhm.
finding value in your book, Justin. And I always want to celebrate that and encourage more of it, because I think it'll help you as far as part of your marketing plan to sell more books. Obviously, that's
Mhm.
important, but to get the word out and have people who have actually found value in your writings to encourage more
Definitely.
people to follow the path. So yeah, I think that's another part of that marketing arm that we can really encourage is getting
Yep.
that kind of review and feedback.
100%.
Excellent. So, okay, I know the book is just newly released, but I got to ask, the name of my podcast is Living the Next Chapter, and it's all about what's coming next. What are you working on now? And, you're promoting the book, you're out there talking about it. What's coming up in your next chapter, Justin, that you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, my first goal was just blinders on, get the book out, and then promote it as well as I can. So I think I'm still in that promotion phase.
Good.
Um, what I want on the back of this, it's been really cool to see opportunities kind of come my way in terms of people interested in starting supplement businesses or sauna businesses or niacin sauna clinics. And so I think for now, it's really just pushing this. I think this is the best use of my time in terms of like mission and getting this into as many hands as possible. And then I'll kind of pick my head up, I think, maybe in the next quarter about if I want to let the book kind of go and naturally spread or double down and really focus on that.
Nice. I love it. Okay, so I have one more question for you here at the end, Justin, and we're
Yeah.
going to close off with. But before we do that, and I do this on purpose because I want people to listen to that last question, and I want them to hear where they can connect with you. So, as far as social media, website, we know the book's on Amazon, but where can we find the book? And where do we get in touch with you? I'm sure there's going to be curiosity and maybe somebody looking for a next speaker to come and maybe play the piano and talk about sweat, or, hey, that could happen. But somebody wants to reach out to you and connect after this interview and after a podcast. Where do they go, and where are you most active on social?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to shoot me an email. I love talking to people. Justin@sweatthebook.com. My Twitter is probably the best place. Twitter, my handle is Hey Justin Glaser, Glaser. And those are probably the two best places. My book is, I'd suggest getting it on Amazon. It's a Kindle, paperback, hardcover, audiobook coming soon. It's also on TikTok Shop, but you're probably not going to get it there. But yeah, just feel free to reach out. I like talking to people.
Amazing. Okay, so what is the last question here for you, Justin? What was one of the bonuses or benefits of sauna that you experienced that you didn't anticipate during your journey, and you were shocked and surprised and delighted that this other kind of side benefit or bonus happened for you that, just kind of caught you off guard, you weren't prepared for? Anything surprise you about this journey?
Yeah, I've done like private saunas, so I have my own sauna, but then also public saunas. So I've been in dry saunas in other places, and I've had some really interesting conversations in saunas. And so when you're in a public sauna, it's kind of like if you start talking, you're kind of stuck there with someone. So it's kind of it's a decision to make.
Yeah.
But I've had a few really interesting. I mean, I made a friend who I've still talked to in a sauna in Miami, but he also lived here, and we ended up like traveling in Mexico for a little bit. I met a guy. I was in my friend's building, and I met a guy who just he was the top criminal lawyer in Canada, and he just talked my ear off about murder cases and all this fascinating stuff. I met the founder of a really interesting health company in the sauna. There's something about, and I think other cultures have tapped into this, is there's something about group sauna sessions that are really powerful. There's like a sense of shared going through something together, even if it's just as simple as sitting and being willing to sweat. That's bonding in a weird way. It's communal. It's only a few people in there. It might even be only two people in there. So I think there's really something to the group sauna thing that particularly the US hasn't caught on to. I had a German guy reach out to me fanatically, like on the call. You could tell I like when people are fanatical about something because it means they're onto something, I think. So he was obsessed with in Germany something called Aufguss, which is you have a sauna meister. So someone is in the room with a towel, and there's let's say 8 to 20 other people in the big sauna, and the sauna meister is trained to push the hot air around, and the hot air hits you. And apparently, I haven't done it, but apparently it's an incredibly, I don't want to say spiritual, but like a very impactful experience that also brings the group together, but is also just this unique thing. And he was trying to bring that to Minnesota. So I think that's the biggest shock, has been sort of this communal aspect of sauna that I was not anticipating.
It's amazing. And that kind of goes back to your comment earlier about how historically it has been a communal practice to do that in groups and not just solo. So maybe there's something there, like to bring us back to that social element and interact with people you would not normally meet otherwise.
I think so. I mean, I was talking to someone who runs a divorced men's podcast, and we kind of touched on this. And I think it makes sense. It's like there's this bonding thing, this communal thing, there's this trust thing. There's something there. It seems like, or ancient cultures understood that.
Amazing. See, there we go. So that's something we've all learned right there. Justin, I love having you on the podcast. Thank you for making time to do this. And congratulations on the book. It's exciting to think about all the authors who are starting a book or maybe have given up on their dream of writing a book, and you've pushed through, you sweat through, and you made it. You got the book, and now we're here to promote and celebrate the launch of your book. So thank you for making time to do this, Justin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information's in the show notes. Please go and support Justin. Go follow him on Twitter, X, or Twix, whatever we're calling. And there it is right behind us. And go grab a copy of the book. And please, when you do, leave an amazing review for our authors and let them know what you loved about the book, just like the reviews we heard earlier. So Justin, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Hey, well, thank you for listening. It's a new year, and we're excited to be releasing even more great episodes of Living the Next Chapter. And we want you to come along for the journey. Thank you for being here. If you know of an author that you would love to have featured on the podcast, an author that you enjoy, an author that brings you that excitement, that you would just love to hear them interviewed on this podcast, I would love to hear your suggestion for a future guest. And what would be a question or two that you would want us to ask them on your behalf? Go to livinginthenextchapter.com. There's a little speak pipe icon there. You can leave me a voice message. Tell me who should be on the show and give me some question ideas. And I'll use your request and reach out to that author and invite them on and give you full credit for the idea. livingthenextchapter.com. Would love to hear your suggestion. And thank you for listening. Catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, fellow parent. If you're anything like me, balancing screen time for our kids is a constant struggle. That's why I want to share a little secret with you, KidsPod. It's this amazing app I found that's packed with podcasts just for kids. Imagine stories, learning, and fun, all without the screen. It's been a game changer in our house, keeping my kids engaged and their imaginations running wild. And guess what? It's completely free. So download KidsPod today. Trust me, it's a decision you won't regret.